This episode is general information only. Full disclaimers in the notes.
G'day and welcome back to the Steak Dinner Pod with Joshua Peterson and Kieran Martin. Real talk for Aussie blokes, health, money, relationship and mateship, served with a healthy side of banter. Welcome back, JP. How are you?
Good to be back. A little bit confronting then. You're the only other person that calls me Joshua other than my mother. So I don't know whether to take offense to that or not, but I'm well. I've got my mug, given the episode of
World's best father. Father.
Yeah, that's from
Josh
my daughter. That
put up
put up the mug.
Put up the mug for those people
what about
listening
you?
in the cars.
You got any? What are you drinking from this morning? Number
I
one,
don't know
Dad.
how old this one is. Probably
Number one, Dad. I tell you what.
Be 15 years, maybe longer.
Yeah,
Mate, it might be longer.
Is there any truth to that mug?
There is absolutely zero to number one dad on my mug. So there you go.
No,
it's the illusion. It's the fake it till you make it, Josh.
That's right. It's all that is 101 marketing right there. Fantastic. What's on the docket today?
Well, episode Lucky 13.
Mm.
Thanks for staying with us, everyone. This one's about fatherhood, the hardest, most important job you'll ever love. We wanted to really hit on this one. You know, there's a lot of blokes have got their own experiences with their own fathers and obviously what they're trying to distill down to their own kids. And I guess to start with, look, we're all flawed. We're all trying to do our best. If you're listening to this, everyone here is trying to do better. So we've got some facts, stats, things to do, ideas for the women that are listening out there. Maybe these are little tips that I know that in my case, my wife helps me diffuse some of my poorer judgment things, which we'll get into. But yeah, just little tips and skills. So hopefully it helps someone. The Swiss Army knife.
Right. Love it. Love it. Where are we starting? Throw it at me.
Oh, well, I guess we're unpacking what it means to be a father in today's times, 2025, but it's very different to what you and I grew up with a sort of 1950s or 1970s father.
Yes.
Where they were pretty much provider and disciplinarian, I would say. Well, that was probably most people. But yeah, I guess for blokes today, it's even harder. They're doing that. Plus there's a very high expectation of not just provision, but also every other thing in the house that has to get done or contribution to that. And I wouldn't be surprised that changes in a relationship over time. So that's what we're looking at. We'll dig into what the research says. That dads today spend 3 times more time with their kids than their dads did in the 70s. So all of that, you're doing 3 times as much, but the dads of the 70s didn't report higher stress and guilt. So put that all together, we've probably got some unrealistic expectations on ourselves. It's probably the guess.
100%. I think that's going to be a very interesting one to unpack because
Yeah.
I find with every generation, the definition of what it means to be a good dad changes. And I think a lot of dads are left confused with a lot of those probably ideologies from the past or how they were raised. And most fathers, I think, they essentially replicate a lot of what they experience themselves in some ways, not every way, but I think it becomes a bit confusing for dads and it results in a lot of guilt and those types of things as well. So
it's a bit of the cats in the cradle, you know.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
We've grown up just like him. You know,
yes, and
my boy
I think
is just like me.
Yeah, and I think also even when people reflect on their parenting as well, it'd be interesting to sort of unpack how we reflect on that using today's versus, understanding what parenthood and what fatherhood meant back then and accepting that for what it was in that generation and, putting our own airbrush on it 20, 30 years later. So it'd be interesting to sort of get into that as well.
Well, the first one probably is, how much time are you a father? Right. And like by the age of 18, when your kid's 18, you as a parent have used up 93% of the total in-person time you're ever going to get with your kids. So if you think about that, it's easily reconcilable, because all you have to do is think about when you turned 18 or 19 and left the house or whatever, you're spending time with your mates, you're spending time with your girlfriend or future partner or traveling or whatever. Makes complete sense that's a realistic stat, but it's a bit scary when your kids are growing up.
It is a frightening stat. And when I first read that, I was first taken aback, to be honest, even though that you're not going to get as much time with your kids once they leave the house or once they become adults and their interests shift and they form new relationships and work and other interests and stuff like that. But you don't realize that you've given up the lion's share of your time with your children by that time, and coming to that realization after the fact, is something that's certainly interesting to unpack mentally.
Well, two of my kids have already moved away interstate for college and for their careers. So, I'm only going to really get to see them on their holiday. Like, they're only going to get 4 weeks a year holiday. So It's not like they're going to be expecting, I've got to go see the old man for a trip, or that they're going to want to be going overseas and doing all sorts of things.
Yes. And the kids that go, they go overseas, they go interstate, or they go even regional makes it harder. If they're a couple of hours away, you're not really catching up every weekend, that's for sure. So, that's interesting. How did that stat hit you personally? Was that a surprise to you?
No. Well, yes and no. I saw a stat recently going the other way about the time with your parents, because as a father, but I also had parents, right? And so the amount of time that you would get to spend with your parents, because you're just so busy with young kids.
Yes.
Right? You just don't have time to see your parents. Basically, the time you saw your parents was when you're dropping them. You might get a birthday or two, and you drop your kids off with them for babysitting as you run out the door, right?
Do you think you don't have enough time, or do you think as a culture we just don't make enough time?
Post, I guess, look, mate, I'm Anglo-Saxon heritage. So, and we've got a very loving family overall, but it's just life's busy.
Yes.
You probably start prioritizing your kids' sports and your kids' these things.
It doesn't leave a lot of time. And also, if you do make the time, making the time has to be really intentional. I think back maybe in days in the past when life wasn't as busy as it is today, you could sort of drop around, and there was a lot of unintentional, when people would just drop around the house and people would catch up, and it doesn't seem to be a lot of that physical contact anymore, which means that it's still possible, but it's just, you have to make more of a coordinated effort, I think, to do that today than maybe in the past. So I think it's possible, but it certainly means it's going to be a lot harder. You have to be really thoughtful about making that time and investing that time, and then at what cost too. Like you said, life gets busy. What am I happy to push to the side to have that extra time?
Yeah. Well, what have you done that's to slow it down?
I don't think you can slow it down, mate. It's like this moving train. But what I try to do now is, because now that my kids are similar ages to your kids, they've got their own lives, they're not coming to me saying, hey, let's catch up. It's all on me to do that. So for me, I understand that I'm more focused around the quality of the time that I have with the kids, because I'm realistic like yourself to know that I don't get a lot of time. So what am I going to do with that little bit of time to make it meaningful and value adding for them as well, so that I don't like my kids to be with me out of sufferance.
Yeah. Yeah. You want them to be having a good time.
I would rather see, and I've said this to my kids, I would rather see you less and you enjoy when you come and see me, and that it's intentional and that we're both getting something out of it. But you're not certainly here to service my emotional needs. Hopefully it's something that's, we're both getting something positive from it. So for example, with my son, I try to find out when he's going to the gym, and I try and tag along with him to go to the gym and have a workout with him.
You showing off in front of him?
I beat him on bench press yesterday, which
Whoa.
he was surprised.
He's a big unit.
Oh yeah, he's a big unit. I was surprised. He was surprised. I was lucky I had another bloke at the gym who was 50. He saw it. He saw what was going on. He fist pumped me afterwards. So we got something out of it. And I was supposed to continue with the routine after, because my son stays in the gym for a lot longer than what I would. I told him I'm out. As soon as I did that bench press, I left the gym. I'm like, I'm finishing on a high, and you will not see me for the rest of today. So that was fun. So I'll do that with my daughter. I think it's just playing into what your kids' interests are and trying to jump on board with that. My daughter likes coffees. She likes going shopping at the mall.
Yeah.
She likes doing stuff like that, and she likes doing chit chat. So, we chat more. Whereas my son, I feel like we do more together. It's more of a physical thing that we do together. With my daughter, it's a bit different.
Yeah.
And then my younger son, well, that's easy because he lives with us. So, but again, you still have to make the time for what interests them.
Yeah.
What about you?
What, Roblox? Robbo?
Yeah, Roblox. I try to do bike riding and things like that. I'm not big on the devices and stuff like that, but I acknowledge it's just part of society today. But yeah, I try and get him outdoors and get on the bike and all that kind of stuff and get the ball out.
So modern fatherhood and identity shift. So the definition of being a good dad, what that meant before, then and now. Got your stat for you. Well, this one won't surprise you. 7 out of 10 Aussie dads say they're under financial pressure, so 70%, but only a third feel confident emotionally as a parent. 3 out of the 10. So basically you're all killing yourselves to provide, which is, that's probably ingrained in you from your fathers as well, but feel like you're falling behind at home, like where you could give more effort. But yeah, when you think back of your old man, what do you reckon it meant to him to be a good father?
For him, look, with my dad, he probably didn't have the best parenting growing up, to be fair. But back in those days, I don't think that was that uncommon. Fathers were very kind of distant and used to go off and work, and I think a lot of that was left to the mother. But for my dad, certainly he tied his role to being a good dad as being a good provider. And being able to do that independently so that my mum could focus on being a mother. So my dad was always out working extremely hard. I didn't see a lot of my dad because he would work 2 jobs. He'd work a full-time job, he'd work a part-time job, and he would work a second job just to pay for our school fees to the Catholic school. So if you were to imagine today having 6 kids, 1 income, and all those kids going...
Your mum wasn't working.
Mum didn't work. 6 kids, 1 income, all of those kids going to Catholic school. At different times, but you could imagine the pressure and could you imagine the grocery bills and all of those types of things?
Have you ever had a one-on-one with your dad to ask him that sort of a question? Like, what did he about
in
being
terms
a good
of
father?
what he meant? Look, I think I've had different conversations with my dad, not a lot because he's a very, very quiet guy. He doesn't talk a lot, to be fair, but if I'm being completely honest, I think before I became a dad, I had a few hang-ups about the fact that he wasn't around a lot.
Yep.
And I had this hypercritical standard that I would apply to my dad, where I think in my naivety, wanted him to be everything and all things, which wasn't really possible,
Mm.
but I still expected it. And I kind of inadvertently judged him for that without really understanding his world and what was going on here. So I had a very selfish kind of view of what it meant to be a good dad. And I was kind of more focused around my kind of, my emotional needs and the time. And then you become a dad yourself and you realize it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's complicated and every kid is different and it's stressful, and making ends meet I find making ends meet some months really difficult. Like probably most dads, it's tough, and that's with 2 or 3 kids. So, I mean, having that, and that's with 2 incomes. So that's one thing that I had to kind of resolve in myself. And then once I became a dad, I think that whole view was turned upside down. And I realized that for him, and it was stepping in his shoes. And I'm a big believer in intentions matter. And even if you don't get it right, what was the intentions? Were the intentions good or were they not so good? So I think it's important to read people's intentions and motivations, and being a little bit more forgiving in those types of things. But certainly he was a great provider. So I think by that standard in the 70s and the 80s, he was a champion dad in terms of doing all those things to give us a good life. And he sacrificed his life basically to give us a good life. And I'd like to think that all of us are having more comfortable lives than what he had, only because of the sacrifices he made to educate us but what I will say as well is, even though he didn't talk a lot, he showed a lot, and he showed what it meant to be a man and a good dad, and to have a good work ethic and to be disciplined and to just get on with it and do what needs to be done to get it. So for me, witnessing that, I think it helped me build up a lot of resilience in terms of how I conduct myself.
I think that's all reasonable. When you're 18 to 25 or so, and you haven't had kids, you're very centered on yourself, right?
Oh,
So,
100%.
and what's
What
going
was
on
been
for
your
life?
experience? Because we're same generation.
Yeah, same generation. My dad had a number of careers and worked some night shifts, ran some professional offices. Didn't have a sort of a linear career scale, but yeah, he was brilliant. He was a brilliant dad, and I know we're going to get to a second, about being present. My dad retired when he was 42, and he got to spend basically his time at home with my brother and myself and my sister. But my brother was younger; he's 10 years younger, or 9 years younger, and that was, to me, absolutely brilliant. He was always there and always available. But just as a side point, the reason why I asked you that question is because when my father he had cancer and was dying in a bedridden, basically, and I would go there a lot to see him a lot because I knew it was, you're never getting that time again. And I said to him, we're talking about a million other things, Elon Musk and sending rockets to the moon and, auto driving, all 10 years later, he's 100% there. He asked me one time, obviously they're on drugs or morphine or whatever at the time, said, have I been a good dad? And it's something that, like you were saying before, these are the things you don't usually talk about. You talk about rockets and you talk about cars and you talk about,
Yes.
the good holidays you had or didn't have.
Yeah.
And, it hit me. And at the time I said something yeah, unreal. Sometimes you got cranky, Dad, but he was working night shifts. He was in a very stressful situation. He was a prison warden as well. And he, so that's very stressful type position, and you've got to be a certain type of person to be able to handle that. Understandably, occasionally, he probably got cranky. Geez, nowhere near as cranky as I did with my kids. Nowhere near it. He might have said something once or twice, virtually nothing to us.
I can concur. It's that type of industry.
So they did it a lot better than us, I think.
Yes.
But anyway, so I went, occasionally you got cranky but no, like my life was fantastic. Dad used to take us away to a farm. He'd go up there for the school holidays with us. We'd go out riding, shooting, driving cars when we're, under 18 on the farms and stuff like that. Excellent life. Well, we had such a great life because of Dad. And whilst he was still providing, he had been a good businessman as well. But the point is, later he said to my brother, that when my brother went and chatted to him was, he started apologizing like really profusely to Justin, saying, I'm sorry if I was always, so tough on you guys or got cranky at you and da, da, da. And my brother sort of fronted me and said, why would you say that I had sort of said it as a throwaway 1 second. And then the rest was probably 10 minutes worth of saying how grateful I was.
But he just held on to that.
He heard one bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously I made amends and went sorry and said the same thing. But I think we're super critical of ourselves in what we do. Because, mate, you couldn't have done a better job than what my man did, in all honesty.
Yes.
So I really hats off. But he was critical at the end of himself.
It's so difficult, isn't it? It's so difficult to, the pressure to be a perfect parent, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. And
well, no one's perfect is probably the point.
And an interesting thing I heard, which was a bit of an epiphany for me, maybe my sister told me, was that, even if you parent your kids all in the same way, they experience that parenting in their own way. So even though you treat them exactly the same, how they interpret the messaging in that, some of it will depend upon who they are as a person, their biology, whether they're introverted, extroverted, whether they're shy or, whether they've got resilience or whether they don't have resilience. You could give the same message to each kid and one might thrive from that message and the other one, it could destroy them. And when they reflect on the parenting, you see some kids where they go, oh, Dad was like this and that. And you can see the hang-ups in the kids. And then you get other kids that go, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's brilliant. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So it's amazing. People are going to take in and they'll hang on to little things. They'll hang on to the little. It's like your dad, perfect example. He hung on to that one line and he magnified it.
To be fair to him, I don't think he would have asked the question if he wasn't on morphine. Probably never have asked it. And number two, he wouldn't have misinterpreted it if he was on morphine either.
Yes,
so,
of course.
They're on the drugs at the time. But
of course.
So if he wasn't on either of those, I have no doubt he would have just said,
yeah.
Occasionally you're cranky. And we'd be able to bond on that because
100%.
Yeah, but I don't think he was. Mate, there wasn't many more calm people than him. He might have only said it once or twice. So,
sounds a bit calmer than my dad.
We don't need to be. You just got to be a bit human, right? So,
I agree.
Yeah. So, who knows what our kids will say about us when the time comes, mate? That'll be what we got wrong and what we got right. But yeah, sounds like you and I are both being very glowing of our fathers. We're very lucky.
Yes, definitely.
So being present over being perfect is probably the issue. This one hit me. Now this is hitting me personally. So
is it the devices?
Again, we've got all the stats. Josh will put all the stats in the show notes, but this one's a Harvard study. And researchers observed families during routine moments, breakfast pickups, playgrounds, bedtime, all that kind of stuff. And they measured how often parents were partially distracted. So that means checking your phone, scrolling, replying to messages whilst interacting with their kids. And then they compared those interactions to the children's emotional responses. So, and that's, their tone, their attempt to get attention, signs of frustration or connection. So what was the result? Kids with parents who were frequently distracted by phones showed 25% lower emotional security scores. Meaning they feel less safe, less seen, less connected. So it wasn't about the time they spent. It was about whether they were connected or not. So if you're sitting at
Yes.
the playground, are you connected or are you on your phone the whole time? So that sort of blew me away. It probably doesn't shock you.
It doesn't shock me, but it certainly makes me reflect on my own life and how I operate on the day to day with my kids. And I'm guilty of all of this.
Mm.
Not my hands are not clean on this, Kieran, at all.
They've got your iPhone
I
16
got
Pro
it is, but
hands all over it.
again, it's like okay, it's 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 what I would liken to when we were speaking about having to be more intentional with catching up with your parents, for example. It requires a lot of thought out intention and diarizing and front of mind.
Yeah.
I find that this is the same thing. I have to be intentional to say, if I'm going to sit down at the dinner table, my phone should be in another room, probably, or at least in my pocket, preferably out of the room for that time. And trying to be mindful about all those distractions around you, and getting the quality of the time is, you just have to be very meaningful and mindful and disciplined about. And to your point, it's not about sitting down and staring into their eyes for half an hour. It's about, if you're having breakfast and you're sitting down and having a conversation, making eye contact, them not seeing you on a phone, and making that a positive, intentional interaction with the kids that's undistracted. And it doesn't take.
Imagine just flipping it, Josh. Imagine flipping it. Imagine you're sitting at the dinner table with your kids, you know, the food's on the table, and your kids are playing with their phone or looking at their phone or texting their friends whilst you're at the table with no distraction, right? Steam would come out your ears, right?
Yes.
That's what it would happen for me. But I'm 100% guilty. My kids would be able to say that. And about a week, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I listened to this very good podcast called the Steak Dinner Pod, where there was
Really? Who's the
where
host?
there was this
Who are the
bloke
hosts?
talking about Josh Peterson, talking about removing, to have better sleep, make sure that your phone's in another room, right? And I started doing that, where I would charge my phone when I was not quite going to bed, but close enough. And mate, straight away, I felt more calm. I cannot tell you how easy it was. And then I started, so that was probably a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And then I started, as soon as I got home, I put it on the charger upstairs on a bloody charge point, which is so far away from me.
Yes.
And
resist the friction.
Mate, it changed. It just absolutely changed me. It was like a behavioral change in me, because I think it's become just so easy to grab it and be distracted and need to comment or doom scroll or whatever you're going to do. So, mate, I'll just say, anyone out there, give that a shot. Honestly,
Yes.
as soon as you're home and want to be present with your family and with your kids, try it, see how you go. You can't do your sports bet at the same time, obviously, but you can leave it plugged in. You don't stand there the whole time. Or if someone calls, you can walk over and get it. But most of the time, these things are texts and things, they're not that important.
Yes, I agree 100%. And it can wait. It can wait.
Yeah.
Half an hour, and nothing's that urgent. My other trick is I keep my Apple Watch on.
Oh, yeah.
Because that kind of allows me, and then if I put it on a focus mode, for example, that says only my kids can contact me or my wife, then that's all that comes through.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, well, I can leave my phone and not have some sort of an anxiety that if my kids are trying to call me, I'm uncontactable. But
That's a good point.
I'm not going to engage with that device. So it becomes like a bit of a security blanket, but no one's having conversations with their Apple Watch and scrolling through the apps on an Apple Watch, right? But it's
Josh,
there,
you're very
kind
good.
of.
You're very good. Yeah, because I was probably saying it on the basis that I was charging my phone because my kids that were going to call me, or the others are in a state they're unlikely to be calling or whatever. So, but I remember that now my interstate kids, they don't bother trying to call their mum because she doesn't have a phone somewhere. Like she would know where, somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they know she's not going to pick up, where they know that I have it on me that I would do it. So
Yeah.
you've just upped my game. So I was at
There
level
you
1,
go.
level 2. Now I'm going to level
now
3, Apple
level
Watch
2, Apple Watch, keep that bad boy on.
and
And then
focus.
again, like I think I said, I just keep that on the bedside table charging at night as well, because then
That's the
I
only thing
get,
you have there, the Apple Watch there.
yeah, and my Kindle, but I just put it upside down so it becomes like a nightstand mode, and then I can see the time if I wake up or if I'm interested, and that's it. I can set an alarm on that. But it's there. It helps me,
Yeah.
but I know I'm not going to dig into that
All right.
type
Yep.
of device.
So be present over the perfection. Okay, this is your probably strong suit here, JP. Fatherhood after divorce. So I haven't been divorced. You have. And so how do you stay a dad, present dad, when you're not under the same roof? Right. So we started just a second ago, be present, but it's not about the amount of times. In 80% or 79% of separation, mum is the primary carer. We've talked about that before. So 1 in 3 dads see their kids less than weekly, presumably fortnightly. But of those, 87% want more time, right? Maybe that just can't be done for whatever reason, or the courts, or your own careers, or whatever, but trying to provide at the same time. And your offset of that is if a kid has routine, then they have 40% better child outcomes. Now, the last one goes without saying, but 60% post-divorce dads report depression spikes. So that's beyond blue. So, mate, so when you've only got the weekends or every fortnight, how do you make them count? And how do you get over the guilt? How do you not turn into Disney time dad?
I think it's definitely a journey, and I think most guys, if they're honest, they'll go through all of those stages at some point. Absolutely agree that there's an instant void there when you get that separation from your kids. It's an instant void. It's overnight. You leave the house and then everything changes, and it's not like a transition. It's just one day you're seeing them, the next day you're not. And it's this whole new reality, and it does hit you viscerally, it hits you emotionally, and it does cause you a degree of, I think depression is probably the appropriate word. And I think most men that are honest when they're in that situation will go through some form of depressive state when they transition into that new world. So I think there's that. And also when you spend less time with your children, and you see them infrequently, there's a few things going on. A, you're guilty. You're guilty that you're not in the house anymore. You're guilty that you're not giving them a full-time mum and dad. So there is guilt in that. How do we compensate for the guilt? Well, we tend to try and overcompensate with things. That's the first thing that comes to mind. What can I give you? And you start thinking about the tangibles to make that void seem less, or maybe distract them with toys and things like that. Also, I think as a dad, you want those kids to have a good experience with you when you're there. So if they're there for the weekend, you want that weekend to be outstanding with the kids.
Yeah.
And you do go into that Disney dad mode, and what happens is you do more in a weekend than you would do in 3 months with your kids.
Yeah.
If it was under ordinary living conditions, and you give them this jam-packed roster that's full of time and things and enjoyment, and you feel at the time like you're doing this great thing, that you're just giving them everything that you've got in this short period of time, so that they leave, because you want your kids leaving thinking, I can't wait to go back there. That's what's going on in the head.
Yeah.
And I want to have that relationship with the kids. I did that.
Mm.
I was guilty of that. You're just trying to find your way in this new world. And
Yep.
then I realized that they don't care about the stuff. They care about the time and creating an environment that is as normal as possible under the circumstances. And what I mean by normal is try to make that environment as normal as if you were living back at home. What would your days look like? How would you parent your kids? How would you discipline them? That's the other thing. You tend to go lean on the discipline at the start because you don't have them often. So it's like, well, I don't want to discipline the kids because disciplining equals bad experience for them, and bad experience for them means they don't want to come over again.
Yeah.
I'm a bit scared of that. I don't want that. I don't want them to feel that way. So I'm going to be the good time guy and I'm not going to discipline them. Or you're thinking it's only for a couple of days. I don't
Yeah.
have to deal with it for another 5 after that. So I'll just kind of let it go. But
Mm-hmm.
what happens is you're not behaving like a parent. You're behaving like a friend.
Yeah.
And it's like they've got, I always say to my kids, you got plenty of friends. My job is not to be your friend. Right. And I heard this expression, I'm a friendly dad, not your mate. There's a difference,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
I'm your dad first and foremost. And obviously we want to have a friendly relationship, but you only get one dad. So I want to keep that relationship as what a father should be to you because you've only got one of them, which means that I've got to critique you. I've got to I've got to discipline you. That's all part of being a dad. When you're doing that, when you've only got them a couple of times every 14 days, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
That's
And you
difficult.
almost know that once they leave for another, 10 days, oh, whatever it is, 12 days before they're back, they're with your ex-partner. And so they'll be going home and either, being upset at dad because he was the one who disciplined.
It's not easy.
And if you're not backed up, then you're not backed up. Right?
And let's be honest, in those types of situations, a lot of men aren't backed up by the other half when they get back, and probably, they could be putting in the knife on the other side, which is not helpful to the child either, by the way,
of course not.
at all. But I think in those ways, you just got to keep showing up and playing that role of father. And don't get your roles confused. Don't try and be a good time dad. Going back to what we said earlier, make the moments count. Just be present for them. It doesn't take hours of interaction. Just make sure the interactions that you do have are purposeful and intentional, and they know that you're there undistracted. And unfortunately, in these fatherhood after divorce, I tell gents, it's a long game. You got to play the long game because you are still going to go through all those teenage years and all those things that even couples together have to go with their kids. It's difficult. Even in the best of relationships, going through those years with your kids, it just escalates a bit more when you've got that as dealing with the separation and all that on top of it.
Yeah, that's great, JP. Good. The next one was around raising kids in 2025 on the meal docket. Stats. Boys without dads, so if they don't have a dad or the dad is not present in their life, there's a 2 times dropout risk, and I'm assuming that's drop out of school. There's a 3 times jail risk, which my guess is that they went round and interviewed inmates and they came back and said, well, if you don't have any influence of your father, there's more of them in the jails. Girls with engaged dads have a lot higher self-esteem. That doesn't surprise you, if you thought of well from your father as it for a girl. And 70% of Aussie teens say dad's emotional availability boosts their confidence. All of those, it's obviously pointing one in the same direction. You've got to be present, right? I guess the hard part is it's the balancing act of being strong without rage. That's difficult. It's difficult sometimes.
It is. I've got,
and
but
for
you
daughters,
feel like,
but that's for sons. Sorry, mate. That's for sons. For daughters, like how do you show the love without smothering them, without princessing them to, that you want them to have their own self-esteem in themselves. So yeah, I don't know. How do you model that strength without rage?
It's difficult. I had difficulty with this, particularly when I was younger and my kids were younger.
Mm.
That was a challenge for me. And working in the environment I was working in with the corrections, that didn't make it easy either. Because I guess with your father and working in those stressful environments and stuff like that, all of that stuff, youth, young kids, and a tough work environment makes it very challenging, being in a not so healthy relationship. Yeah,
Mm.
all of these things, it's a bonfire, isn't it? Isn't
Yeah.
it? But I think it's just something that, yeah, I've certainly lost my bananas many times in my youth.
That's
But
just not
then,
on a hubcap either, is
no,
it?
it's
Mate, my thing would be, this might be something that our fathers did better than us. And I was just going to say, like, my dad, very rarely, like, unbelievably rarely, because they were the silent types, they were the stoic types. And like you
I
and
don't
I've
want to
talked about
confuse my
before.
father.
What's it?
My dad was quiet, but
Yeah.
boy, yeah, he if he got mad, he got mad. You'd know
Did he?
about it.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a bit of a temper back in the day.
Mm.
But I don't. When you think about it, when I think about his situation, could you imagine getting 6 hours sleep a night if you're lucky, working 2 jobs every single day of your life, and coming home to 6 screaming kids who'd probably put holes in the walls of the house? How would you
Yeah.
feel?
I'd clip it, mate. I would be terrible. I clip it, but when the kids were younger, I was probably, I'd go off at the small things. These are the way it goes, isn't it? Like things that are happening in your life, maybe in your career or at work, those things that you don't feel you can have any response on, you
Yes.
end up taking it out on the people that you love, right?
Yes,
And
because it's
it's
unfortunately
tough.
it's the worst place, but it feels to you to be the safest place to do it.
Yeah.
And it's the place that you should, and we keep going back to work analogies, but really that should be your home environment should be the most sacred place where you don't lose your cool. Because if you looked at your prioritization list, it's almost better to lose your bananas at work on a colleague than to lose it at your spouse or your kids,
Because it impacts them. Yeah.
it impacts them physically, emotionally. Business is more detached in terms of people don't take that stuff as much to heart. And you don't have those vested relationships with your work colleagues either. So I'm not saying to do it at work, but it's just, I think it just doesn't make sense, does it? That we come home and we torment the ones that we love because of something that's going on outside of the house. But we're all capable of
There was
doing
a
it.
quote somewhere which was that something about what your sons are like, what your daughters are like, but your daughters are like when they giving a mirror to you of your behaviors,
Yes.
and they are hard to take because they only learn them from basically
Yeah.
you most of the time. So,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
they when you see that your behaviors come out in your kids is actually
Yeah.
makes that rage come a bit harder.
Exactly. And I'm a big believer in kids will focus intentionally or unintentionally on what you do as opposed to what you say. So, and I think that goes for everything. I use an example, we go back to the job. If you tell your kids to study, have a good job, you want to have a good job yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, model it,
Model
the
it.
behavior.
Model the behavior. If you don't want your kids to swear, don't swear.
Yeah.
Or smoking or drink or whatever the behavior is. If you want them to be cool, you've got to model that. If you can't do it
like that.
yourself, you've got to model it. The thing in terms of what changed for me personally, I was just, nothing good was coming of my angry episodes. No good was coming from it. It was just getting me into so many problems, Kieran.
Yeah.
It's like everything that was going bad in my life, there was a hint of anger there somewhere in terms of emotionally reacting at work. I used to have quite the emotional outburst sometimes at work, and I didn't care. In my 20s, I didn't care who was around, Kieran. I would go off sometimes, and I'd go off at senior people
Gee.
because I didn't care. And it came back to bite me very hard,
Mm.
and then you get to a point where you're like, this isn't working for me
Mm.
anymore. There's no value to it. And then I noticed when I started just detaching myself and looking at things more calmly at work, the other big thing was pausing before I respond. That's a big one.
Okay.
Just the amount of times now, like that I even work or life that I'm thinking in my head that I want to punch you in the face right now. Like, or you're an idiot,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
So I think that in my mind, and then I respond differently. Whereas the old me would have just thought something and then responded to it straight away, and I would have blown up a relationship. So taking that time to pause and I think a bit of age, bit of maturity and stuff like that come into play.
Yeah. I
What
guess.
about you?
Oh, I was just thinking then of myself, and I was thinking, there are things when what do I want to call them? I call them discussions, but they're not. They're
Lectures?
one-upsmanships or arguments, right? And whatever that particular topic may be. And I don't know, maybe I don't know how I learned it, probably from my father or whatever, but
Mm,
it's I see it modeled at different times through to my kids that they
yes.
can also do that. And it's not something when I see it as a reflection, I go, well, there's only that came from me. So
Mm.
I'm just seeing this like
Can I ask you
what-
a question? Do you feel like you were going into those conversations to try and win?
yeah, that's basically it, right? I don't like people saying things that they say that I said when I never said it. Right?
Mm,
But everyone would be the same there, right? But
yes.
some people were able to go, well, I don't really, it's not something I care what this person says. It's like that Rudyard Kipling poem, If, the fact that you can stay there and have your words turned by knaves, and still keep you cool.
Yes.
That's, that's probably wrong in the quote, but that's the basic premise of it. I've just written down, I might try something out myself, just not not pick a fight, but it's more like not to prove other people wrong. That's probably it.
Mm,
And
mm,
let's see if I can do it for 30 days. I usually try to do it on fact, like a stoicism sort of,
yeah.
was it
uh,
called Plato? Oh no,
yes.
the Socratic method.
Yeah.
You just
I
keep going back and ask them same questions until basically, it depends. Once you've found someone's pressure
yeah.
point, for most people, it's
I think
usually a
it's
blonde haired president.
yes. It's
And then you just have to pressure point on little things and you get their 2 minutes of hate out.
I think I remember I think it was a quote from, Keanu Reeves,
Mm,
where they're talking about, because he's very he's a very relaxed guy. And saying, I don't want dramas. He said,
yeah.
if you tell me 2 + 2 is 5, I say, good for you, champ.
Yeah.
Like it's
Happy
not,
for you. Yeah.
it's happy for you.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
and I think that's a mindset shift, isn't it? It's like,
That goes further than Socrates,
that's
doesn't it?
further than Socrates. And it's like,
Socrates stayed there and then drank his poison, I think. So,
yeah. And then I think the other thing, and I think we've talked about this before about, getting yourself into interaction or sometimes heated debate. It's like now think more about who am I debating this
mm,
with? And is this somebody I can have a conversation with that's rational? Their opinions are going to be respected, or is this person just here to wait for a pause in the conversation so that they can tell me what they think and then walk away?
yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Mm,
I take more time thinking about that. That tends to get me into less of these types of
mm,
argumentative discussions, because if the person's not receptive to the conversation, then why have the conversation to begin with?
yeah.
It's
No,
difficult though. It's
no, like
difficult.
you say, you got to work on yourself
Yeah.
and try to follow those off. So they're little, maybe things that the action steps to show up a little bit better. What's in our toolkit, JP?
Yeah. Toolkit, what have we got in terms of being a more present father? A lot of you guys probably already doing this, but just things to be mindful of. Checking in with your kids, having 10-minute check-ins. Like we said, it's not something that has to be an exhaustive conversation, but just take those 10 minutes to find out, how was your day? I think the dinner table's a good opportunity. If you're disciplined around that, or you all sit around dinner having a conversation, that's 30 minutes right there where you can have a really good discussion. For
That's
me,
only if they're in the house with you, right? Otherwise, you want to
yeah,
be making a
if they're
phone
not,
call.
again, it's got to be the phone call. It's got to be more intentional. I'm fortunate. I walk my son to school, so I
Mm,
use that 20 minutes for the walk to school.
mm,
We have a conversation.
yeah.
There's no devices. We just talk about whatever, but it's engaged with each other. And then, yeah, or call up your kids. If they're not there, FaceTime them. How's your day? How's school? What's going on? Even if they kind of, and I think I've said this in previous episodes, even it's just you making the effort to say, I'm trying to engage with you intentionally and in an undistracted way. And if your son or daughter, if they kind of disengage from the conversation, that's okay. That's kind of on their terms, not yours, right? You're doing what you're supposed to be doing as a dad. You're reaching out to your kids to try and engage. Sometimes they're going to be receptive to it, sometimes they're not, but don't be disenchanted if your kids aren't that receptive at the start, particularly if it's something new.
Mm,
It's going to feel a little bit awkward at the start. Like when I started to hug my dad, that was awkward at the start, right? It was like hugging a concrete statue.
yeah.
But then after a while, now he throws his arms around me. So you've just
Mm.
got to kind of go through that process of doing these things, even if they don't seem very normal and they seem a bit artificial at the start. You will find your rhythm, I
I
guess is what I
remember
say.
one you told us again in a previous episode, but the one about if you've only got your kids every fortnight, then that
Mm,
time is sacred. I remember you saying to me that, like, if someone has a 40th birthday at the time for you,
mm,
um,
yeah.
you said, "Hey mate, sorry, I can't make it unless my kids can come," which I'm not expecting you to invite them to the 40th, but that weekend is I can only do with my
Mm.
kids. And
Yeah.
mate,
That's
that's a huge thing.
that's something maybe I should have touched on in the fatherhood after divorce segment, but just blocking out that time for your kids. Yeah, I was very intentional and disciplined. That's one thing I was very disciplined about. Those weekends were sacred. Even if I was single and dating or whatever,
Yeah.
anybody I was dating knew that that time was locked down, unavailable. Come see me on the other 12 days, but these
Yeah.
2 days, think of me as being out of state
Mm.
because I'm not interested in doing anything else other than being a dad for those 2 days.
I also think that other one that you were just saying there, just single out some time with each of the kids
Mm,
for their interests. I guess
mm,
when the kids are doing cricket and netball and soccer and like it's a different age
mm.
group there.
Yes.
But, when they're young, it's, I don't know, Pokemon and Angry Birds and God knows, Roblox or something.
Roblox. Yes.
Yeah. Which is
Just the
difficult. You've
interest.
only got to spend a little bit of time there, right? And
I know. So, but then as they get older, my daughter loves forensic science. So, we'll have a chat about Dexter.
mm,
Her interest, it's my interest too, but
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's just whatever it is for them, just get engaged, get interested. If there's a book they're reading, I try and get interested in what that is about, talking about the book or whatever it is. So these are all, there's no hard and fast rules. I think it's just making some time, just getting in there, getting a bit of engagement going. Mate, last question. What do you hope your kids say about you in 20 years' time? What a finisher.
Look, it's a simple one. I hope they say that I was a good dad, that I did my
Mm,
best. But, well, then you'd probably go deeper. What's that?
mm,
What is that? I think, I hope that they realize sacrifices were made. Sometimes I went too hard on my work. Like I used to work 7 days a
mm,
week back in the day. So when their
mm.
kids were young, very, very young,
Yeah.
sorry, 6 days. And then and then I had a sport that I sort of prioritized when they were very, very young. Um, so, but for the most part, yeah, I've been as present yeah, I hope they say he was a good man. He would lay down on a train tracks to stop for
Mm,
them. That's basically what I would hope.
yeah,
But I hope
that's
to be
good.
there all the way to
That's
the end,
nice.
mate. I hope to be there to get to see the
Yeah,
weddings
that
and the babies and look after my grandkids and things like that. So hopefully they'll remember me maybe as a grandfather. Who knows?
yes, and that full evolution of the relationship, and probably though the kids get older, they're going to reflect on you in different ways. They're going to see the very same things differently as they
Mm,
get older. They're going to process all those things very differently at different
it's a
ages.
perception, isn't it? That you can
It
only
is
and perceive things from different viewpoints, like anything. You know, if you're up on the
percent.
top of a mountain looking down at a car, or if you're at the
Yes,
ground level looking at a car
yeah,
from a
and
speed perspective.
100%. And the things that may have given you anxiety or remorse towards a parent
Mm,
when you're 20, you get
mm,
to 40, and it's
mm,
one of the things that endears you about them the most,
mm,
because you actually realize what those qualities and how they impacted you, and how
mm.
those qualities helped you along the way.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's very interesting. I think
yeah.
for me, it would be more around, um, when you do go through a divorce and you don't have that traditional family home. I think for me, it's just about the kids feeling that even though they didn't have two parents living together, that they feel like they didn't miss having a dad
Mm,
and a mum. So I want to make sure, I hope the kids feel like they felt like they had a dad that was there for them, that was interested in them, that provided for them and had their best interests at heart. And even though I didn't get it right a lot of times in different ways, then I hope they reflect on that and understand that my intentions were always, on the
mm.
right side of
Yeah.
the equation, even though I didn't hit the mark. But that's essentially how I'd like to be, or have them remember me. Yeah.
Well, that's just like every dad, I think.
Yeah.
AP.
Yeah.
So that's really good that they know that, look, no one's perfect. And you
Mm.
only really know that when you become a father or a mother, I think is probably
Uh-huh.
well, that perception is where it all
Uh,
comes together.
yes. I tell my parents that all the
Mate,
time.
well,
Mate,
that's a very nice, yeah. And actually all of you say
yeah.
the same thing to your parents because you don't get the chance again.
Yes, you don't have a lot of time left with your parents for most of us, particularly us middle-aged guys.
Yeah.
Do spend that time, make that time to be in your parents' lives, because you're not going to have a lot left, that's for sure. Mate, that
Next
wraps
week.
up. That was good. Next, mate, I'm going to hand it over to you
Mm,
to choose between two topics. We
okay.
can look at the loneliness epidemic, stats and why men's circles shrink after 40,
Mm.
or different kinds of mates, the footy mates versus the truth-telling mates.
Ooh. I think the mateship one. Let's do the mateship one.
Do you want to do the
Let's
mateship
get to
one?
that. Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
See? This is purely
Yeah.
organic,
We've
this
gone, I think
podcast.
we gotta have some good in there. And then we
Yes.
talk about everything that happens. We can't just keep going bad, 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 bad.
Yeah, 100%. No,
Yeah.
we want
We don't
guys
want to
to,
depress people all over the place. We're just saying you're not
yeah,
alone.
yeah,
Don't feel it like you are.
yeah. We don't want you
And
taking Prozac after this
you got
podcast.
mates over here on the Steak Dinner Pod who are
Yes,
wishing you well, wishing
yes.
you're writing down some things about how you
Mm.
what you want to do, and look forward to next week when we come back and see
Get,
how everyone's progressed.
get stuck into it.
Mate, any ideas that anyone has, put them in the comments, put them on the YouTube.
Yes,
Thanks.
please.
And obviously thanks for all the comments we're currently getting. They're great to hear from everybody.
Great. Mate,
And a bit of a shout out to Jeremy for his 50th. Happy birthday, mate.
happy birthday, Jeremy.
Yeah,
We both know Jeremy. You know him a
Jer-
lot better than me, but yeah,
he's a
shout
champ.
out to Jeremy. Yeah.
Champion.
He's a good guy. He's got good
Hopefully he'll
hair.
sponsor the pod at some point.
Last time I saw him, he's got pretty good hair, doesn't he? His hair's still pretty good.
He's a good unit.
Yeah, well played.
Thanks, mate.
All right, mate.
He probably doesn't use as much finasteride and everything else as you would, but
Doesn't matter. He's doing his thing. That's all that matters.
All right, buddy.
All right, big fella. Have
Thanks,
a great
mate.
one. Take care.
You
Bye.
too. See you, buddy.
This episode is general information only. Full disclaimers in the notes.